Hello and welcome to Mindful Living, where we explore the art of living with the intention, balance, and inner peace. I am Avik, your host, guiding you through conversations on health, meditation, mental well being, mindfulness, and the mind body connection. Each episode features expert insights to help you grow, heal, and thrive. So, take a deep breath, relax, and join us on this journey to a more mindful and fulfilling life. So, let's get started.
Hello and welcome, listeners, to another inspiring episode of the Mindful Living podcast. I'm your host, Sana, and today we have a special guest, Dagna Bieda. Dagna, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. How's it going?
Great, great. It's going awesome. And I'm very sure for our listeners as well. Listeners, before we proceed on to the discussion for today, I would love to introduce my guest to all of you. Dagna Bieda is an engineer turned coach who has dedicated her career to helping professionals in tech achieve their full potential. With over a decade of coding experience, Dagna understands the unique challenges faced by ambitious individuals in the tech world. Having personally overcome burnout and depression, she is now on a mission to share practical strategies to help others move from burnout to thriving. Whether you are struggling with mental health, seeking better work life balance, or simply curious about tools like talk therapy, coaching, neurofeedback, and psychedelics, this episode will offer you powerful insights. So, let's dive into Dagna's transformative journey and explore the mental health strategies she uses to help professionals reprogram their minds for success. So, Dagna, welcome to the show once again. It's an absolute honor to have you with us today.
I'm really happy to be here and share everything. And thank you so much, Sana, for that beautiful intro.
Thank you. Thank you, Dagna. So, to begin with, your transition from software engineering to coaching, it's fantastic. It's really fascinating. So, can you start by sharing a bit about your personal journey? What led you from a successful coding career to becoming a coach?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I mean, leaving a nice paying software engineering job for coaching, it was quite a bit of a transition.
Yeah.
There was some risk involved, and it was a little bit scary, but I had this very potent driver. So when I was starting my engineering career, the reason I got into engineering is because I was looking for impact. I thought that with engineering, I could literally build the future, whatever that means in the mind of a teenager. So I wanted to study control engineering and robotics. And I really thought that if I build robots, then I am surely building the future. Because I mean, that's the most futuristic thing I could think of.
Correct. Correct.
And well, fast forward in my career, having had over 10 years of experience working in tech and various engineering roles, I realized that every time that I looked for more impact, it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. And part of it is that I didn't have a clear definition of what I really want until I burned myself out. So I found myself in my engineering job that I used to love, that was fun. And all of a sudden, it was just kind of like, I don't want to wake up to work. I don't want to go into that meeting. I am not even wanting to respond to a Slack message or let alone respond to an email. I would drag things out and procrastinate. And it came to a point in one September day when I came to work and I cried in front of my manager in a one-on-one. And it was so embarrassing. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. Did it ever happen to you to be so vulnerable at work, Sana?
Um, Actually, I couldn't express it because of the fear of my manager. But what you have described, because I have done 4 years of engineering in instrumentation and control. And after
Okay.
that, it was completely, although my occupation was completely different from engineering, but that burnout, that sense, that, lethargy and that embarrassment, when I couldn't wake up in the morning, reach office in time, uh, I just couldn't concentrate on anything. I mean, the fear of my manager messaging me, oh my God, what's it going to be? What's going to be next? That was really, really a very tough time. So
Mm,
I can totally relate with that.
yeah. For me, that crying though, even though super embarrassing, and I thought I could be so unprofessional
Right,
in
right.
my own mind at work, it was a
Mm,
wake-up call. It
yeah,
was really difficult but necessary because I realized, okay, I need to stop pretending that things are fine. I need help. Because up until this point, I was just chugging along. I was moving forward. I was pushing through, and I thought that things will get better, except they kept getting worse. And
exactly.
it's not because of what I've done, but it's because of how I thought about the things that were happening around me, and because I didn't really process
Mm-hmm.
some of the things that I should have. For example, I immigrated from Poland to United States, and even though nobody died, it
Mm-hmm.
felt like an important chapter of my life has closed, and I haven't even stopped for a second to consider what it meant for me. And I
Mm-hmm.
had this, what my therapist later on called complicated grief, this inability to let go of the past and move forward towards the future. At the
Uh-huh.
same time that this burnout happened, I became a parent and I had suffered from postpartum depression. And I had no idea what it really, well, I was clearly
Must,
completely oblivious
yeah.
to what it means to be a parent for the very first year
Mm-hmm.
after having my son. Because on one hand, I had this new family member that I was responsible for, that I gave life to. And at the
Right.
same time at work, I was acting like nothing has happened. Like, I was just moving towards promotion. I was
Mm-hmm.
working towards getting more accolades, more accomplishments, trying to put more things on my plate to show that I'm worthy of that
Exactly.
next advancement. And I
Mm-hmm.
just burned myself out. So it was a blessing in disguise. That's what I'm going to
True,
say.
true, true.
Because as I cried, and my manager pointed out that perhaps I should talk to someone,
Mm-hmm.
and I did. So talking to a therapist
Mm-hmm.
after that meeting, um, it changed my perspective and it changed my quality of life just by
Mm-hmm.
talking to someone who got deeply what it is that I was going through, my struggles,
Mm-hmm.
what it is that I was facing against as a woman in tech, as a
Mm-hmm.
minority, as an immigrant. She just got me. And all we did was talk. And she
Mm-hmm.
helped me understand how my life basically programmed me to be who I was
Mm-hmm.
and act the way that I did. And with that acting, lead myself into burnout and being more prone for postpartum depression and more prone to not take good care of myself, just, keep working.
Mm-hmm.
I had this hard work bias, which contributed to my burnout. And
Yep.
just talking to someone really changed the quality of my life in a span of few months. And I thought, this is the kind of impact that I'm really looking for. I
Mm.
wanted to have that kind of impact on people's lives. And that's how I became a coach.
Wow. That's really a very, very positive transition, and more power to you, Dagna.
Thank
And
you.
burnout is a common issue, especially in a very demanding industry like tech. Um, how did you personally recognize that you were experiencing burnout? I mean, uh, are there any general symptoms or indications to realize that yes, I am having burnout? And what immediate steps did you take to recover, apart from obviously therapy or just talking to your therapist?
Yes. So I had no idea that I was being burned out at this point in time. I just knew something was wrong because I cried in front of my manager and I thought, okay, this is not me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And going into talk therapy, it's my therapist who pointed it out.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, I know looking back,
Mm-hmm.
how to help people recognize burnout. So, for example, some things that you might be feeling or experiencing in the midst of a burnout is feeling totally drained. And that's what you described, right? It's like you're running on empty, like you don't really have the energy, neither emotional or physical energy is just gone. The enthusiasm is like disappeared.
Yeah.
Or you could feel completely ineffective. A lot of the time, I felt like even though I was trying to put in so much work and prove to everybody that
Mm-hmm.
everything was fine, I felt like I was getting nothing done. I felt so ineffective and incapable, which was horrible because I'm a bit of a high achiever, bit of a perfectionist. So I
Mm-hmm.
hated that feeling. Or if you're experiencing burnout, you might get easily annoyed,
Correct.
right?
That's right.
Like little things will get on your nerves more than they used to in the past because you don't have that capacity of dealing with negative emotions. Or you could be cynical.
Yeah.
So you could be negative about work, people, about life in general. And to be honest, part of the reason why I didn't notice that I was being more cynical than normal is because as Eastern European,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of a cultural thing. We have this dark sense of humor, and I thought, yeah, this is just what it is, isn't it?
Uh,
Um, Another thing that you could be feeling as you're burned out is this need to, I would say, isolate yourself. It
exactly.
almost feels like there's this cloud of pessimism that
Exactly.
is above your head and it's following you everywhere, and you just want to let it soak you. And you just binge your favorite TV series on your living sofa, crunching on your favorite junk food, and it just rains on top of you, right? I mean, that's how it feels, doesn't it?
Exactly. I mean, I can swear by this. Going to pantry and just checking. Okay, if many people are sitting, I'm not going to go and eat there, have my lunch. I'll just wait for maybe another hour. When I see okay, one or two are there or nobody's there, then I'll just go sit in a corner, have my lunch, and come back because I don't want to get noticed by anyone.
Mm, exactly. But I think the biggest indicator
Mm-hmm.
is the things that used to be fun, that used to bring you pleasure, that used to be intellectually stimulating, that you wanted to do,
Mm-hmm.
they no longer bring joy. It's like you just don't care. And that's the biggest sign of burnout. And one last but not least
Mm-hmm.
indicator that you might be experiencing burnout at this point in time is masking misery with temporary thrills, right? So, like maybe using alcohol to numb yourself, or
Right.
comfort yourself with food, or overeating, or not eating enough, or
Right.
escaping the yucky feelings through excessively distracting yourself with what's on your phone, what's in your computer, what's on social media, and completely ignoring your self care. So, burnout is tricky.
Mm.
And it's not like a light switch. And that's something that we have to understand because you don't wake up and suddenly have burnout. It's a gradual process, and
Yes.
it's really a result of prolonged exposure to excessive stress.
True. That's true.
So you can't really take it away with just like one action. You have to change how you act, how you think about life, what it is that you do in order to get out of burnout.
That's true. I totally agree with you, Agna. And you talk about using strategies like talk therapy coaching, and even neurofeedback and psychedelics in your work. So,
Yes.
for our listeners, could you explain how these different tools can support mental health and career success?
I love that you're asking about that. So, from my perspective, brain works kind of like a programming app, like a computer, like a software, like a
Mhm.
piece of software. And there are two aspects to it. There's a software aspect to
Mhm.
your brain, which are your thoughts, your beliefs, your memories. And those aspects, the software aspects, can be updated in therapy or coaching. This is a phenomenal place to update the software of your brain. But there's the second aspect of the brain, which is its hardware, how it's wired, the biological connections, all the neurons and all the synapses. And neurofeedback, or sometimes also called QEEG biofeedback, is a
Mhm.
phenomenal tool that allows you to upgrade your hardware without really putting in conscious effort and doing anything to your software.
Hmm.
And let me maybe give this analogy here.
Mhm.
With our phones that we use on a daily basis,
Mhm.
we download software updates all the time. A lot
Yep.
of the time, they happen in the background as you sleep. The software just downloads itself,
Yep.
and boom, you have a fresh, newest kind of software. And with our thoughts and beliefs, as we live our lives, we update our thinking. Maybe something happens, we change a little bit or reflect on some things that happen in our life, and it changes the software of our brain, how we think. But every now and then, we also go to buy a new phone. Because if we don't buy the new phone, the new software no longer works on the outdated hardware,
True.
right? And
True.
I don't know if that ever happened to you, but as I was doing mobile software engineering,
Mhm.
there were a few occasions where we had this old test devices.
Mhm.
And the old test device would no longer accept the new software updates because the hardware just physically wasn't there
Exactly.
to support the new software. So you had to be like, okay, we have to buy new phones because those no longer work with the features that we're trying to ship to our clients.
Yeah.
And it's very similar with the brain. That's why I believe some people go for years into therapy and it doesn't help them because all they did was update their software, but the relevant hardware upgrades didn't happen. And there's still some hardware that's missing. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So,
So,
yeah, please go on. Please go on.
yeah, so I think coaching and therapy are phenomenal tools for upgrading software.
Uh-huh.
Neurofeedback is phenomenal for upgrading hardware. And then in my case, I ended up enrolling in a 1 weekend retreat with psychedelics
Mhm.
because I was really curious. As I mentioned at the very beginning of the show,
Mhm.
I had experienced massive transformation within a few months of talk therapy. And I
Mm.
watched this documentary one time called, I believe it was How to Change Your Mind on Netflix,
Uh-huh.
which
Uh-huh.
talks about psychedelics, the history, the reasons behind the movement, what happened, how it happened, and what are the actual scientific facts. And one of the scientists, I believe it was that documentary, one
Mhm.
of the scientists was literally measuring people's brain activity as they were consuming psychedelic.
Oh.
And he essentially summarized that a lot of his patients will come in and describe the feeling as 10 years of therapy in a weekend.
Wow.
Because psychedelics change how your brain processes. Some of the areas go more quiet than usual, some of them are amplified. And so it feels like you're the therapist and you're the client, but it's all happening in your brain. So there's nowhere to hide and there's no way to lie to yourself because it's all happening in your head.
Right. That's right.
And when I heard that it's like 10 years of therapy in a weekend, having had a very positive experience with my experience of talk therapy, I was like, sign me up. This is amazing. I really want this. But I do believe, having gone through a psychedelic experience, that you have to be very well prepared to actually benefit from it, because there's a lot of risks involved. And for some reason, it makes sense to still do it. For some people, it can be dangerous, very dangerous, even deadly. So it's very critical to, if you're listening, thinking about maybe taking a psychedelic in the future in order to tackle some mental health issues, I would highly recommend considering the following few things. Number one, I would not recommend doing it before you're 30. Here's why. What we know from neuroscience, from what we now understand about how brains develop, is that they pretty much form until we're like 28 or 29, like 30. And the last thing that develops is the part responsible for emotional processing. And you need emotional processing to be top notch, because psychedelic experiences will bring very intense and very strong emotions up to your consciousness. And you need to have that hardware in place to be able to deal with it, to be able to process it. So number one is age. Second is family history of any sort of mental disorders. I would not have done it if I had a close relative who had any sort of mental disorders like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, anything like that. The reason why is because there's a lot of us who might have a family member, and we go on our entire life without the schizophrenia coming to light, right? But for some people who have that genetic trait, they could get triggered if they have that hardware setup that is prone for any sort of psychosis or any sort of mental illness to come up. The psychedelics might trigger it, and they will have to then deal with the consequences for the rest of their life. One way to go around making sure that your brain is in a good place, because I did mention it's really about the hardware, how the hardware is tuned in order to be or not be prepared for psychedelics, is going through the neurofeedback training. The first step of neurofeedback training is basically doing a brain scan. And a clinician who knows what they're doing is able to check your brain's stability and ability to go through a psychedelic trip. There is this part of the brain called DMN, Default Mode Network. And according to some studies, the more unstable that network is, the more likely you are to experience negative effects from psychedelics. In my case, when I did my neurofeedback training, I asked my clinician, like, hey, what are the chances? I'm planning on doing this psychedelic trip, and I have small kids. I cannot really risk having, an outbreak of psychosis or schizophrenia or not coming back. Like, so tell me, what are the risks? If my clinician had told me, Dagna, this is too dangerous, I would not have done it. But they told me, they look at my brain and it looked very stable. It looked pretty good. I shouldn't have nothing to worry about. Well, there are no guarantees, but at least I felt that I did my due diligence, that I checked everything I could in order to prepare myself and mitigate the risks while getting the benefits and the positive outcomes. And it was, oh my gosh, Sana, it was phenomenal. I feel like, and I'm going to continue with this analogy of my brain being kind of like a smartphone. I feel like during the psychedelic experience, my brain connected to the cloud being the universe, and just downloaded a lifetime of wisdom into my brain. I had the kind of experience that's very similar to people who have a near-death experience
Uh-huh.
go through.
Okay.
And I felt like people who were 90 something, 100 something years old on their deathbed dying and
Mm-hmm.
having the insight looking back at their entire life. And
Oh,
that was my download. I feel like I've learned so much, and we do not have enough time here to dive into everything I've learned, but it was incredible. It was phenomenal. It changed how I show up in the world, how I interact with other people, how I feel about my own life. I truly feel like comparing myself in the span of a few short years, I'm the
mm.
kind of person who went from being depressed and burned out to
Mm-hmm.
someone who's in awe to be alive.
Wow,
And psychedelics played a part in it.
that sounds brilliant. Awesome. Wow. And your book, of course, Refactor. It
Correct.
draws parallels between the human mind and software, as evidently you explained in the last question. So, can you share a bit about, what are the key takeaways readers can have from your book, and how you leverage it to help people optimize their mental code?
Absolutely. So I loved using the programming analogies because of my background.
Yeah.
And frankly, having seen brain as a product, as a construct of your lived experience and how it relates to programming, once that clicked in my brain, like I could not unsee it. And it's fascinating because a lot of the time, whenever you have an app, for example, and an end user clicks on a button, the button doesn't work. They're going to let you know. You're going to
Yeah.
receive that feedback,
Yeah.
right? And then what do you do as an engineer? Well, you jump into the code and you try to find those hidden bugs or maybe some inefficiencies that have led to this negative outcome for the end user, leading you to receive that feedback.
Yeah.
And you can do exactly the same thing with your brain. So there might be a bug or an inefficiency that's hidden in your mental legacy code that is leading you to have imposter syndrome or
Mm.
leading you towards burnout or leading you towards having trouble dealing with other people, which is pretty common for engineers, or you're struggling with self-marketing. So I've seen it to be true for myself as I refactored my own legacy thinking, as well as my clients, that once you refactor these bugs and inefficiencies out, once you update the code, that's when you're able to unlock the success that you're looking for. And whether that's a promotion or more impact or more money or more growth or more quality in your life and having more time to spend with your family, it's up to you, right?
Yep.
But it's the software update and hardware update that really allows you to get to that point.
Definitely.
And
And
in my
mhm,
practice,
mhm,
I like to say that I moved from programming computers to reprogramming human minds because
mhm.
that's what I do with my clients.
Absolutely. Great. And how have you incorporated neurofeedback and psychedelics in your coaching practice, and what results have you seen in your clients?
So with neurofeedback, I unfortunately when I work with clients, we
Mhm,
can connect over a Zoom call, right? But
mhm,
for the biofeedback clinic, for the neurofeedback to work, you have to physically go into the clinic. So the way I work with my clients about it is basically I tell them, I share my experiences with them or
mhm,
other clients that have worked with me, and we try and find a clinic that's nearby, that's
mhm,
close to them, so that they could potentially go and, if they choose to do so, invest in their neurofeedback training, which is a separate modality. It's not a service that I provide. I am focused on the software updates, but I
mhm,
do help my clients finding places where they could do the hardware updates. Similarly with psychedelics, what I highly recommend is finding a place that's, first of all, legal, second
Mm-hmm.
of all, safe, and offers medical oversight as you're tripping. So the place where I went was legal, safe, and we had medical oversight. And there were probably like 40 other psychonauts tripping with me, and about 15 volunteers who were looking over us, making sure we had water if we needed to drink something, or a blanket to cover ourselves, or a pillow to just be comfortable
Yeah.
whenever we were, journeying inside of our own
Mm-hmm.
minds.
Mm-hmm.
And there were two people on medical staff giving us that oversight, making sure that everybody was safe. And I'm pretty sure that they had, a phone with dialed 911 just to press a button just in case if
Mm-hmm.
anything bad would have happened.
Yeah.
Because like I said, it can be very dangerous if you're not if your brain's hardware is not in a good place to receive what they called in that setting the plant medicine.
Hmm. Great. And one of the most important aspect is self-awareness. So, how, in your opinion, how important is self-awareness in managing stress and avoiding burnout? And are there any exercises or practices that you would recommend for building this skill?
Absolutely. Awareness is key. Being mindful of what it is that is happening
Right.
around you, but also inside of you, is critical, because without that awareness, you cannot take any feedback in, right? Let's
Mm-hmm.
go back to that example of an app. If a user tells me, hey, I'm clicking this button and it's not working, and I just pretend I didn't hear them, can I fix the problem? Well, no, right? Because I didn't accept that feedback.
Exactly.
So we have to be able to accept the feedback in. We have to be aware and willing to take the feedback in. And one note on feedback here, because I think that's critical to understand too, is we tend to think of feedback as words spoken to us in
Hmm.
a one-on-one conversation, maybe with your manager, a coworker, maybe your spouse, right? Getting feedback from them. But in reality, everything that's happening around us is feedback. Getting or not getting a promotion is feedback.
Hmm.
Landing or not landing that job interview, that's feedback.
Right.
Having difficult team dynamics, that's feedback. So it's really about trying to open your mind to what is happening around you and trying to piece those pieces of information together in order to figure out, okay, now that I know that all these things are not working,
Mm-hmm.
how can I change something about my internal code? What is it that is causing me to be in the situation facing those outcomes? Because a lot of the time that I've realized in my own personal growth journey, but also working with my clients, is that a lot of the time, whatever obstacle you're facing,
Mm-hmm.
the problem is you.
Right.
And once you are able to acknowledge that there are things that you could do about yourself, change your perspective, change how you think about things, how you um, how you take in that information or interpret what's happening around you, that's when you're very often very close to experiencing a massive breakthrough. So when I work with my clients, my goal is always for them to have at least one big aha moment in
Mm-hmm.
our sessions as we work together. Because with one aha moment, the things click and they start thinking differently. They
Exactly.
start showing up differently. They start doing things differently. And that creates different outcomes in their life.
Great. And many of our listeners are, ambitious professionals, entrepreneurs, or maybe solopreneurs who may feel stuck in their careers or personal lives. So, what are some practical steps you would recommend they can take to start thriving, even if they are currently feeling overwhelmed?
I would love if you could just pick up my book, honestly. And the reason behind it is because in Brain Refactor, I lay out an algorithm. And the Brain Refactor algorithm tells you step after step what kind of questions you could ask yourself in order to reflect on the related to the obstacles or challenges that you're facing, including being stuck. And as you reflect, it also guides you to how you can plan out your own refactor. And the benefit of having that approach, thinking of your brain as a product of a lifetime of your experiences that contains legacy mental code, that's something separated from what I would call your core self, or from your essence. We could call it soul, if you will. If you're able to see yourself as external to your true potential, it's so much easier to make those changes because it feels like working on a product, like an engineer, like, oh, this product's not working. These are the issues. Let me just change these few lines of code and then it's going to work. Boom. So you're able to get that distance, and it's no longer personal, and it's no longer have to hurt, and it's no longer attacking your ego that raises all these defenses that is keeping us in the place of not wanting to change anything about ourselves, right?
Yep.
So really, I highly recommend picking up the book Brain Refactor, as it has all the steps that you could follow in order to make improvements.
Great. And then how can our listeners get access to your book, as well as if they want to connect with you, understand your coaching process, how exactly you are helping them rewire their brain to achieve fulfillment and success as well, how they can connect with you?
Yes, the book is available on Amazon on October 1st of 2024. The Kindle version launches, and it's available worldwide. So anyone who has access to Amazon can access the book as well. But with the Kindle coming out, it's going to be accessible to anyone basically with internet. And within the first month, it will be available for $1 only. Well, 99 cents. So technically less than $1. Because I believe this book can have a tremendous impact on people's lives. And I really wanted to touch as many lives as it possibly can, because as you may have noticed, all my career, I've been really chasing that impact. It just fuels my fire and it makes me motivated. And as I've learned in my psychedelics experience, it's also part of my purpose, part of my reason of being here, just helping people see.
True. That's true. Great. And thank you so much, Dagna, for sharing your incredible journey and offering such valuable, priceless mental health strategies for our listeners. So thank you. Thank you so much for coming here.
Thanks for having me. I had a blast being here, and thank you for letting me share part of my journey.
And listeners, if you're interested in learning more, you can find Dagna's book, Brain Refactor, on Amazon. You can refer the show notes along with this episode on your favorite podcast platform. And remember, mental health is a key part of thriving both personally and professionally. If today's episode resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe, share it with someone who might benefit, and stay tuned for more inspiring conversations like this on the Mindful Living podcast. See you next time. Thank you.